Hello, awesome people. I hope you're having an amazing day today. Today, we're taking a look at the novel Sojourn by R.A. Salvatore. It's the last book in the second trilogy that was written by Salvatore. In this series, it's a prelude to the first three books of the trilogy that kick things off the Icewind Dale trilogy. It's the Dark Elf trilogy. It is a sequel prequel. It develops the characters by going back and doing a prequel. And looking at them and so forth, and this basically tells the story of Drizzt life before joining, and it puts him in his final bounds before starting off where he would have started off with the first book in this series, the Crystal Shard. That was the first book to kick things off, which was the second book in the Forgotten Realms series, which is a part of. When I was a kid, I read the Dragonlance stuff first by Mark Weiss and Tracy Hickman, and I read the first 6 novels, the first trilogy and then the second trilogy by them. And then I went and I read the Forgotten Realms stuff to see if it was still as good. And I started with Dark Walker on Moonshade, which was published first. So I read that one first by Douglas Niles, liked it enough to pick up this Crystal Shard that was published second, liked it, and then I have been loyal to the Drizzt series ever since. This is a big, huge hit with Salvatore and its publisher TSR. This was a best-selling series with a lot of works, and he has 22 best-selling works. Does this author Salvatore? So let's put him on a map in a major way. A lot of these shared worlds were kicked off by brand new writers. Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman had best-selling stuff with their Dragonlance series. They had never written fiction before, although Hickman although one of those had worked for the company and had written modules for the company TSR that put out that shared world. And then the next one, The Forgotten Realms, was its first writer, Douglas Niles, also worked for the company and wrote modules and stuff like that, but he had never written actual proper fiction. Our R.A. Salvatore, again, the Crystal Shard is his first work, and so forth. I'm giving this a 7+ out of 10. It's fun. It's probably like a 7.2 or 7.3 or 7.4. Then running down to a 7 proper. I liked it. It's a lot of fun stuff that happens in it. And these 3 chapters, briefly, of the character of Drizzt that we're doing a deep dive into, are his home in the first chapter in the first book, his homeland of Menzo Baranzan, at the end of which he'll decide to set out into the Underdark because he's born with a person of conscience in a race of evil people. So he decides to set out and leave his home. That's the end of chapter 1. Chapter 2 sees him go into the Underdark and explore the Underdark and survive in the Underdark. And at the end of chapter 2, the book 2, he decides it's just not for him. So he decides to head out into the surface world and live in the surface world as a dark elf, refugee from his people. And then that's it. That's chapter 3 that we're reviewing for you now, Sojourn. I gave a 7+2. R.A. Salvatore, again, is a big name. We probably don't need a whole lot of things for me to tell you about. Drizzt, his character, is also hugely influential on fantasy in the 80s and 90s when it was big and very popular. Even in Dungeons & Dragons role-playing games, you had a lot of characters that were Drizzt clones. Drizzt appears in a lot of media. For example, in the Baldur's Gate video game, he appears as a character that you can interact with and fight alongside with against some gnolls, if I remember correctly. Or you can just kill him and take his stuff. Oh, that's hard. Because he's a strong character, but there you are. But he is a character that you will come across in a variety of media that's owned by TSR or licensed by TSR to other companies, because that's how powerful he was. He is the synergetic character of his generation, just like the 2 characters that he combines. 2 generations prior, Tolkien had the Ranger of Aragorn, who was a big hit with fantasy fans when they started to read the Lord of the Rings series, by Tolkien, and that was a huge hit. And he was a ranger, and he was outdoorsy, and he tracked his foes, and he was sneaked around through the night, and he used herb lore to save his people, and so forth. And he was definitely somebody who was a lot of fun, right? That's Tolkien's creation, Aragorn the Ranger. And then a generation later, we have Moorcox as Elric of Melnimini, who is in the Eternal Champion series, and he is from a very, very evil race of humanoid creatures called the Melnibians, and he is their leader, and he's born with pangs of conscience, and so he leaves his people because he just can't stay with them. And so what do you actually... So, Drizzt is an Aragorn type in the sense that he's good. He's an Aragorn type ranger. He's an outdoorsman, right? And so forth, which we'll find out a lot more about in this novel. His outdoorsman, rangery side. But then he also is from an evil race, the Dark Elves, right? And he's got a conscience and a good side to him and so forth. So he combines those two. So obviously, Salvatore did something big when he created Drizzt, and I think is where it comes from. So there you go. There's sort of my take on Drizzt for you. And Sojourn, again, giving a 7+2 out of 10. I do not give my reviews spoilers, as a reminder. I do go back and reread a lot of things that I've read when I was a kid, like this stuff. Although this series, I've actually gone back and reread a few times for you folks. Started reading it when I went on a trip to Israel for 10 days, and then I took all 6 books with me with the hope of reading the first book on the first day, the second book on the second day of flying, and then the third book over 3 days, because it's 300 pages long. I figured 100 pages a day, the fourth book, and then the fifth and sixth books on the flight backs. That was my hope. I was slowed down a little bit by how sleepy I was. So I only knocked out the first 4 books plus the first third of book 5, and then I finished book 5 in the next 2 days with 100 pages a day. And so I knocked out book 5 with 100 pages a day for the next 2 days. And then this book I knocked out actually for 4 days. With 100 pages a day, and then one day was Thursday night football, so I didn't read any on Thursday night football after work, and then that's it. So I knocked it out in 4 days with 100 pages a day, so that was pretty good and pretty quick at reading. It's about 300 pages long. It took me about 2 hours for each 100 pages, so it's very quick. It did not take me that long for me to go back and reread it for you folks. Again, the name of my channel is The Worst Thing About New Books, which is a quote from Jacques Joubert, which says that the worst thing about new books is that they keep us from reading the old ones. So books that were originally published in the 80s and 90s are decades old. They're definitely old books by modern standards, right? And so I think that's pretty cool that I'm going back and rereading those. I think there's value in that too, as somebody who's now 45 with that perspective. I also think I've gone back and read things that I've never read before, from the pulp era or earlier or later. Right, they're decades old. So this is part of the key sort of unpacking of the older stuff that this channel is focused on. So there you go. I'll go ahead and leave you to it. Would you like to, thanks so much for watching my video. I really do appreciate it. If you enjoyed this video, please feel encouraged to hit that subscribe button. There's going to be a lot more of these to follow. And if you'd like to talk about this further in the comments below, why not? Let's talk about spoilers, or if your review is different than a 7+ out of 10, higher or lower. Let's talk about it. I'd be happy to talk with you about that in the comments below. So thanks again for your time, and have a great day.